Recently, a top newspaper did a story on exaggerations. I don't recall what they did about exaggerations, but I want to tell you that my stories on UFOs are not exaggerations. One should understand that if there are people who do exaggerate, maybe most people do, and I suspect that is the case, then there have to be people who do not exaggerate, and probably people who play things down a little. Okay, I want to read two articles that appeared in the Barbuda Nation some time ago. I spoke to a particular professor of the University of the West Indies, and he was kind of disappointed in this, and I don't think, and he was fed up. He didn't want to talk, so maybe he might be very angry at me for doing this, but it appeared in the public, and I don't know, so I'll read it. The first one, Ichirouganaim, as the Arabs called Barbados, is not only a mountainous island unlike its western neighbors, but as its relative flatness made it invisible from a canoe or any small wooden boat more than 30 miles away, and its nearest neighbor was today's St. Vincent, 100 miles west. It would have remained undiscovered by its pre-Columbian neighbors perhaps for centuries. I happen to disagree. I think Barbados was found by rain clouds. If you notice, in some islands like Puerto Rico, you find that it will rain in El Yunque, but not on the rest of the island, and it's possible, I think, that Arawakans could have found Barbados by rain clouds. But that it was originally populated by Arawakan people, there can be absolutely no doubt. The article goes on to say, Dr. Carl Watson assures us that over 150 Arawakan sites have been identified across the island, bunching at Spikestown, Bridgetown, and Transylvania. But what name did these First Nation islanders have for this island? We shall evidently never know, for they had all but disappeared by the time the first Europeans, the Portuguese, got here at the dawn of the 17th century. I hold, and only story hold, that most likely there were one or two Barbadians hiding in Barbados during the days of the plantation, who came out at the end of slavery and intermarried with the light-skinned peoples and other peoples. Okay, the Portuguese call this island Barbados, or Barbados, the bearded ones. These could hardly have been trees, since that would have been in Portuguese as Barbados or Barbadas, the word for trees. Ehore, A-R-V-O-R-E, being feminine. Note that Barbuda is to this day an island rimmed by bearded fig trees. Us Barbados were therefore I convinced bearded men. You must forgive my mispronunciation of words here. I'm not at all familiar with Portuguese. And why should this strike the Portuguese as noteworthy enough to make the island? The reason is simple. Amerindians were and still are, except for the hair on their heads, a hairless race of people. Only if they miscegenate would they become hairy face and hairy skin. Did that happen to the people of Ichirouganaim perhaps 8,000 years or more ago? It is worthy of note that there is a racial stock of Amerindians in the Mato Grosso region of Brazil called Barbudas, or bearded ones. I happen to know about that. I don't, well, let's go on. Ichirouganaim Part 2. Now let us make a leap forward and join the papyrus boat of the Norwegian explorer, Iouloumain, which in 1971 set sail from the Moroccan port of Safi, West Africa, and after 57 days of drifting on the north equatorial current arrived at Barbuda. He had therewith proved that from times before Christ, coastal West African shipping drifting north course that had been caught by the irresistible north equatorial current and pushed to this Arawakan island. We cannot say how many times this would have happened, but we can say that with some certainty that the African sailors would have received a Iouloumain welcome. Welcome to Barbados. We have recently assumed our First Nation Islanders, then slowly become a race of dark-skinned people of Afro-Arawakan stock. The African genes also producing possibly markedly different noses, Carib.It, and un-Amerindian hair on the skin, Carib.It, especially here on the face of bears. It would not be surprising that the Caribs, upon discovering them, found them to be first looking and unlovely. And where would these Caribs have come from? The line of islands they have already conquered from the north to the south, and using the evidence of Breton's dictionary, Français Carib, where Wahomoni, Barbuda, St.Kitts, Antigua. We go on to describe some names, original Arawakan Indian names here, which we're having difficulty pronouncing. Okay, the song like this, these sound like a familiar, these sound like a family of names to which the six-syllable consonant ending Ichirouganaim does not seem to belong. More, however, in every case, the Caribs are alleged to have killed the men and mated with the women, whose ethnic stock was the same as theirs. These names are like there is some linguistic evidence that something of that kind happened, but that evidently did not happen when the Caribs met the racial stock of Ichirouganaim. The invasion we may assume from the founding of neighboring islands must have driven the whole repulsive stock out of existence, except for those whom they could not find. It would have been this remainder emergent from the island caves and gullies where they could hide from the invader, unlike the other islands mountain people who would have really accepted the contact of Portuguese sailors. These were not in the war canoes, but big sailing ships of the islands which our own primeval folk legends may have already carried a vague, friendly remembrance. And these sailors, with the acceptance only of the careless faces of the First Nation people of South America, would have noted that these were not the bearded ones on the map. They put old Barbuda, which the first English map makers significantly translated as fluid. The Barbuda. Thank you for listening.